Right, so in the ongoing 2G trial, when A. Raja was asked about his faulty policy for allotment of spectrum, he pointed his finger at one single man, Pradip Baijal, the former TRAI chairman under NDA-1. Now, nearly a decade after his retirement, Pradip Baijal has come out with a tell-all account, an explosive book where he seeks to draw a common thread between the scams that unfolded under the UPA2, that common thread being the culpability and the complicity of senior Congress leaders as well as the former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. Mr. Pradip Baijal, welcome to CNBC TV18, coming right to you. We're talking about events here. The events that you've spoken of in the book are events that unfolded in the late 90s and the early 2000s. Now we're standing nearly a decade apart, which begs the question about the timing. Why now and why not a few months earlier under the UPA2 that could have had more of an impact when the persons being spoken of were actually in power?
I have written very clearly in the book that there was a conspiracy to equate NDA with UPA as far as 2G was concerned. And therefore, I have explained in the book, documents were removed, artificial charges were got prepared, etc., etc. Now, in that period, when investigations were going on, if I had written a book, it would have been misunderstood by the legal people. And my lawyers and my advisors, everyone said that while these investigations are going on, you should keep quiet, and I did.
Fair enough. We'll deal with those explosive revelations in just a bit. First, dealing with the allegations that you had been facing. The allegation, here's the allegation that your policy of allowing a couple of telecom operators such as Tata Tele and Arcom to migrate to UASL after waiving off of the license fee was a move that was indicative of the TRAI going beyond its mandate and perhaps also lending a helping hand to the telcos in question with respect to their profitability. How would you respond to these questions?
You see, to understand this issue, you have to go right to the beginning. When the regulator was appointed in 1997, the regulator was very aggressive. And he took a number of decisions which were not liked by the government, but they were in the interest of the telecommunication sector. When the third regulator joined, we found that the sector was in total litigation. Two, we found that the sector was incurring huge losses. We found that the bidders had bid excessive amounts. So the regulator could have slept and natural consequences would have followed. And what were the natural consequences? The natural consequences were that all the companies who had bid would have become BIFR companies. They would have become sick. And the telecom regulation would have made no headway. I have mentioned some sectors where such problems happen. We chose not to be passive. We chose to sort out the problems. There were two companies which were allotted a spectrum. Now, therefore, the error, if at all, was that we did not fully stick to the letter of the law. And if we had stuck to the letter of the law, you would have had a sector where you would have had a tele density of 5% today, and there would have been many, many companies who would have been in the BIFR, and they would have been sick, and the entire telecom sector would have been sick.
Right, now coming to those revelations that we have been speaking of, I'll just read out a few excerpts from the book. You've said in the book that the 2G is an open and shut case with the clear involvement of Manmohan Singh, P. Chidambaram, Dayanidhi Maran as well as A. Raja. You've also gone on to say that Manmohan Singh is no longer a reformist but a prisoner in the hands of telecom operators as well as coalition partners. That's not it. You've also gone on to say that Manmohan Singh is equally culpable for the scam losses and approved the actions of Dayanidhi Maran as well as A. Raja. And finally, perhaps the biggest statement of all these, that all these actions that are being spoken of were in fact proposed and then implemented in the PMO. So some startling observations is what you've passed as a part of the book. You've gone on to pin the blame directly on the former Prime Minister and the former Finance Minister at a time when Manmohan Singh is already under scrutiny for his involvement in the coal scam. Would you care to elaborate on these comments?
You see, again, what I've said in the book is already known to the media, and I've not said anything additional. For instance, that famous Finance Ministry note which came out some time back, where that finance ministry note, when Mr. Pranab Mukherjee was the finance minister, said very clearly that that the PMO knew what was happening. There were many other revelations in the press where it was proved that the PMO knew, though the Prime Minister denied. One of the letters of Raja, which was sent to the Prime Minister, went to Principal Secretary to the PM. And Principal Secretary to the PM called the section officer in the PMO and told the section officer that Prime Minister desires that such letters should not be put to him and he should be allowed distance from these issues. But how could that be? He was the Prime Minister. These were not issues which could be decided in the DOT. These issues, since they were multi-ministry issues, therefore they had to be decided in the PMO. But then he passed an order that these issues will not come to me. EGOM will decide on these issues. Now, those were clearly issues where he was not taking responsibility. But he was the Prime Minister, so he had to take responsibility. So what did he do? He sidestepped and left people like us, and also I would add Parakh to that list, to face the music of the CBI. It is only much later that in Parakh's case the Prime Minister has been called. But the Prime Minister has to take responsibility. I have worked in government with Dr. Manmohan Singh, with Mr. Chidambaram. They are absolutely brilliant people. But why they were compelled to behave irrationally and encourage and kind of facilitate these scams, I will not be able to comment. However, in both the cases, as you mentioned, both in the coal scam and in the 2G scam, what was done? What was basically done was that the commodity was made scarce. And after the commodity was made scarce, you started allotting the commodity with no rules clearly prescribed. And that led to the 2G scam and the coal scam.
Well, you're certainly not holding back punches, and much less in the case of Congress's former allies, the DMK and its leaders. You've gone on to say, as a matter of record in the book, that there was an inherent conflict of interest in appointing Dayanidhi Maran as the then telecom minister. Care to elaborate on that comment?
Why you asking me this question? You know much better. You are a broadcaster. Can a broadcaster be a telecom minister? He has a vested interest, and perhaps the Prime Minister did not know that I had been appointed broadcaster in I was appointed a broadcasting regulator in 2004 by way of a notification under the Act. And I have mentioned about that notification and how the Supreme Court agreed to that notification, because the notification made enormous sense, because your sector had to be regulated for behaving rationally, for every operator to have a proper business environment. Now, how could you have my minister as being the broadcasting minister? But no one listened, and I could not shout. I mentioned to the Prime Minister once, and that is about all. I'm a bureaucrat. I cannot go and shout before the media that this is happening.
Well, going ahead and almost as if to substantiate that earlier claims of inherent conflict of interest, you've also gone on and cited a very interesting incident, one which involves the former telecom minister Dayanidhi Maran flexing his muscles vis-a-vis Ratan Tata, no less than Ratan Tata, with respect to Dayanidhi Maran forcing him to take certain business decisions with respect to Tata Sky. Can you elaborate on that incident?
You see, going back in time, I perhaps should not have written that in the book. But it's a fact, and it's a very well-known fact, that he tried to put pressure on Mr. Tata to merge Sun TV and Tata TV. And Mr. Tata was very unhappy that this is not the way to do business, because you don't do business with political parties. And you and I know very well that he never does anything which is improper. Perhaps he mentioned to me because he wanted to gauge my reaction, whether I would be whether I would comply with Mr. Maran's illegal instructions to me to damage Tata Sky. Perhaps he mentioned on that account.
Right, so on that note, we'll slip into a small break. We'll continue this conversation with Mr. Baijal on the other side. Well, welcome back. We are in conversation with the former TRAI chairman Pradip Baijal, who is making some explosive revelations right here. So on to you now, to the next question. You've not sugar-coated your observations with respect to the CBI, and using a very thinly veiled reference to Ranjit Sinha, you also observed that the CBI was turned into a tool of vindictive politics, and it turned into a caged parrot as far as the government and various influential operators were concerned. Care to elaborate?
I said that CBI behaved like a caged parrot, and it was only doing the bidding of the political master or the corporate masters. You see, Ranjit Sinha's role in my case was very limited in comparison to his role in so many other cases which you are aware. Of course, he kept helping the other side, and I can't even identify the other side. Who was after my blood and why? Obviously, people were against me because, number one, the political party in power thought that this is the only way to throw dirt on the present, on the then regulator, and then blame the NDA. This is precisely what Mr. Yashwant Sinha, the then finance minister, also told me, that I should be careful about this kind of thing happening.
Right, now let's talk about your association with Neera Radia. That has, of course, been subject matter of a great amount of public discourse. Here's the allegation, here's the case here. A former regulator alleged to have helped a certain group after retirement, ends up on the payroll, virtually on the payroll of that same company. And I say virtually on the payroll as Neera Radia's proximity to the certain group in question is very well documented, is very well known. And this incidentally also happens to be one area where your longtime friend and advisor, the current finance minister Arun Jaitley, even he hasn't approved of you taking off your hat as a regulator and then donning the hat of a consultant. So quite a fair bit of complexities here that you're dealing with, and this is one area that needs your clarification.
You see, I have very carefully described all the circumstances. And I also highly respect Mr. Arun Jaitley's political intelligence and legal intelligence. I think his remark was apt. But I've also stated the other side of the story. What is the other side of the story? All the telecom regulators in the world are consultants today. And I had two choices, either to join a company or to become a consultant. So I became a consultant because I thought this was most respectable, because then I would advise a large number of telecom operators, and I will work in the area in which I had acquired core competence. So I said, all the operators in the world are consultants, all the regulators in the world are consultants today. So when I point out Mr. Jaitley's comment, I don't come out with a judgment. I leave Mr. Jaitley's comment honestly where it was made. But whether I will become a consultant again, if given that opportunity today, my answer is yes, I will become a consultant today. And what happened in Neera Radia's case, and what happened in this case, and what happened in all the investigations, etc., is maybe providence. I don't think there was more to it than providence and intrigue. You see, I was not associated with Neera Radia. I've said that very clearly. And I've said why I started a company which was financed by her. Now that was because I had no money. And when I went to the venture capitalists, I found that their terms, even for this 2-3 crores of money, were very unfair. And at the same time, Neera Radia, who was consulting for Tata, which was and which still is the most respected company in India, which was consulting with and was consulting with a lot of MNCs and was the 8th largest public affairs consultant in the world and the largest in India, I thought was the right thing to do. And my experience of her work was totally different, public affairs. I never interfered in that work, and she never interfered in my consulting company, which I ran along with CM Vasudev. She never interfered, and I don't still think that there were any points where I felt that we were doing anything wrong.
Fair enough. Now, speaking of the book, you've given us what went behind the telecom revolution, from the tele-density moving from 1% to 90%. You've given us that picture. But the one person who's always referred to as the telecom czar vis-a-vis this picture of tele-density of 90% is Sam Pitroda. This, according to you, as per your book, is an anomaly that needs correction.
Well, I have challenged this belief and I have given the numbers, and it is for you to judge. You see, what was happening every time that mobile was mentioned, and in advertisements, it came out in the open that the mobile czar of India, the guy who brought in mobile telephones. I thought this was very funny because this was the man who had opposed mobile telephones. It is all in government record that he said, no, mobile phones are not for the poor Indians. Second, when he left, the mobile tele-density was less than 1%. So how was he a mobile czar, which you referred him to be, you meaning the press referred him to be, and therefore I had to put the record straight. However, I have also said that he did great things. The way he set up CDOT, the way he set up rural exchanges, he did great things. But then I have said that none of the technology could work on the Indian telephonic system because of wrong regulations. And once the right regulations came, there was an explosion. The technology was still there. But you see, we keep saying that CDOT was a great thing. Yes, it was a great thing, but it didn't help. The numbers are obvious. The rural tele-density was still 0.2%, 0.1%, etc., despite CDOT, despite Mr. Sam Pitroda. So I have made references with figures, and it is for people like you to interpret whether I am right or wrong. I have the highest respect for Sam Pitroda for that work of CDOT.
Right, Mr. Baijal, one final question now. You are back on the CBI scanner. You find yourself back on the CBI radar, this time with respect to the HZL divestment that we saw back in 2003. Now, here's the interesting bit. Arun Shourie is one man who's stood by your side quite publicly with respect to all the 2G trials and tribulations that we saw. But this is one area where even he has chosen a safe route. He's gone on to say that HZL is a question of valuations, that the valuations were arrived at by the valuer, which in turn was appointed by the Department of Mines. So a very neutral, a very safe route is what he's taken. Does that leave you a more worried man with respect to the latest CBI scrutiny?
Please understand, no one behaves like Mr. Arun Shourie. He's totally different. Perhaps he's totally different because he's from your profession. No minister would jump in when his secretary is charged with anything and say that no, I supervised the entire 2G thing and question me if you want to. So no minister behaves like that. Even the Prime Minister, when Parekh was charged and when so many other persons were charged, ran away and said, no, don't put these files to me. So Mr. Arun Shourie is different. But what he has stated is a total fact. But the most important thing in HZL is that the case has gone through a High Court, the case has gone through a Supreme Court, and they have dismissed the petition on grounds of valuation. And now suddenly, on the basis of an anonymous complaint, 12 years later, the case is reopened. Now, I can give you 100 more facts, but only these two facts are sufficient to explain my case. That if a case which has gone through the rigors of the High Court and the Supreme Court is reopened on anonymous complaint after 12 years, there's something seriously wrong with our system.
Right, Mr. Baijal, really appreciate your time, thoughts and comments on those explosive issues. That, of course, was Pradip Baijal, the former TRAI chairman under NDA 1, seeking to shed more light on the developments that took place vis-a-vis the 2G scam, shedding more light on that, holding back a little and telling all in his latest book where he has sought to draw a common thread between all the scams that we saw under the UPA 2, seeking to take aim directly at the senior Congress leadership as well as the former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, exclusively here on CNBC TV 18.